Buzz, your go-to source for the latest news and updates. I am your host, Buzz Lightyear, reporting live from our studio at the heart of the city. Today is a very special day as we celebrate the birth anniversary of one of the most prominent figures in Philippine history, Dr. Jose Rizal.
And I am Jessie Starlight. The program today will take a closer look to Rizal's life, his contributions to the Philippine Revolution, and how his work continued to inspire young Filipino to this day.
Before we dive into the details, let's have a quick overview of Rizal's life and the Spanish colonization of the Philippines. Rizal was born on June 19, 1861 in Calamba, Laguna. He became one of the leading figures of the Philippine Revolution against the Spanish colonization. His works, including Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo, exposed the injustices and abuses suffered by the Filipinos under the Spanish rule.
Throughout today's program, we will explore the impact of Rizal's life and works on the Philippines and how they continue to shape the country's identity today. So, stay tuned for the insightful and thought-provoking discussion on this important topic.
Today, we have two very special guests with us. They are both experts in their respective fields and have achieved incredible success throughout their careers. First up, we have Andy, also known as the Rizal Advocate. Andy is a Filipino historian and scholar who has dedicated his life to the study of the life and works of Dr. Jose Rizal. He has authored numerous books and academic papers on Rizal, shedding new light on the national hero's life, philosophy, and his impact on Philippine history.
Our second guest is none other than Woody, also known as the Patriot Prince. Woody is a renowned Filipino nationalist who has been a leading voice in promoting and preserving Philippine culture and identity. He has been a staunch advocate for social justice and has worked tirelessly to raise awareness about the importance of nationalism in shaping the country's future.
I am thrilled to have Andy and Woody join us today and have them share their expertise and insights on the life and legacy of Dr. Jose Rizal. We will be discussing Rizal's contributions to the Philippine history, his influence on Philippine nationalism, and how his teachings continue to resonate with the Filipinos today. So stay tuned for an enlightening and informative discussion with our esteemed guests. Andy and Woody, welcome to the show.
Now, let's start with our first segment, celebrating the life of Dr. Jose Rizal. So Andy, could you share with us some insights about Rizal's life and how he became a symbol of Filipino nationalism?
Yes, let's give it up for our national hero. Jose Rizal is known as the national hero of the Philippines, as he is a writer and key member of the Filipino propaganda movement. He is a Filipino nationalist, writer, and polymath active by the end of the Spanish period.
Wow, can you tell us more about how Jose Rizal became the national hero? I remember reading his novels back in junior high school.
Yes, Jose Rizal's impact is due to his two novels, Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo. His works played a huge role for the Philippines to gain independence from the Spanish colonization because it inspired several to fight against Spanish abuse for freedom. His style was to advocate for freedom through peaceful means rather than violence, thus he fought through a pen.
Unfortunately, he died from execution. The Spanish government in Bagong Bayan, now known as Doneta, executed him due to the rebellion in the Philippine Revolution.
Oh my, he definitely died a hero.
True. What I like is rather than the usual route of violence, he found peaceful means to inspire people to fight.
Indeed. But before we proceed, would you like to share a fun fact about Jose Rizal, Woody?
A fun fact. Well, Jose Rizal is fluent in several languages, starting with at least 22. These consist mainly of Tagalog, Spanish, French, Latin, Greek, German, Portuguese, Italian, English, Dutch, Japanese, Arabic, Swedish, Russian, Chinese, Greek, Hebrew, Sanskrit, Malay, Chavacano, Visayan, Ilocano, and Subanon.
Wow! Imagine the brain power to be fluent in 22 languages. Looks like he can win over women of different nationalities.
Yeah, no wonder his last name was Rizal, with all the riz he has.
Puns. Anyway, now that we have a brief idea of who Jose Rizal is, can you please give us a more detailed context of Jose Rizal and the life he lived?
Jose Rizal goes by the full name Jose Protasio Rizal Mercado y Alonso Rialonda. He was born on this very special day today, June 19, 1861, in Calamba, Laguna, and died on December 30, 1896. His parents were Teodoro Alonso Mercado and Francisco Ingracio Mercado, later known as Francisco Rizal Mercado. He is the seventh of 11 children with one brother and 9 sisters.
Wow, what a long name. No wonder he just went by Jose Rizal. Imagine if we had to call him by his full name every time we had to mention him.
True. I also heard Jose Rizal is a really bright guy. What was his educational background?
Well, he studied Bachelor of Arts at Ateneo Municipal from 1872 to 1877. He was known as Emperor for being the most outstanding student in his class, graduating with highest honors. After that, he studied philosophy and letters at UST for 1 year, then shifted into medicine in his second year.
So why did he shift into medicine, Woody?
He shifted because of his mother's failing eyesight. Thus, he took a pre-medicine and medicine courses at the same time.
Wow, imagine being so smart that you study pre-med and medicine courses at the same time.
He is truly smart. Out of the 24 students, only 7 remained and he was one of them. From 1878 to 1882, he studied medicine at UST. However, he did not graduate from UST because he was disillusioned with the education system of the school, mainly due to the discrimination that Filipino students suffered there.
Huh. So if he didn't graduate from USD, how would he finish his medical degree?
Well, he moved abroad instead. He studied medicine and philosophy and letters abroad in Spain at the Universidad de Madrid from 1882 to 1885. He received the degree of licentiate in medicine in June 1884 for passing the medical examinations, thus allowing him to practice medicine.
Truly a bright one, huh? Imagine taking 2 majors with one of them being medicine.
I know, right? Balancing medicine on its own is very challenging already.
Truly, he even continued courses for a doctorate in medicine. Unfortunately, he was not given a degree due to the lack of funds to defend his thesis.
Oh, that's very unfortunate.
Super! However, he did end up obtaining the degree licentiate in philosophy and letters in 1885 with an outstanding rating.
Wow, that is a very interesting academic background. Truly a smart guy.
Yeah, I wonder how it is to have a brain like his, but moving on, how did Rizal start writing his first novel, Noli Me Tangere?
He began writing the Noli Me Tangere in Madrid, starting off by proposing this in the house of Pedro Paterno in 1884. In 1887, he went back to Calamba to spend time with his family and open a clinic. However, the friars had a negative reaction to the Noli Me Tangere. Thus, he left the Philippines in 1888.
Oh, where'd he go?
Back to Europe, he became more active in the propaganda movement, a campaign for the Philippines to be made a province of Spain so that the Filipinos would have the same rights as the Spaniards, the representation of the Filipinos in Spanish Cortes, and the secularization of parishes.
Interesting, I didn't know that. So what did he do as part of the propaganda movement?
He published articles in the propaganda movement newspaper known as La Solidaridad. This mainly included Sobre la Indolencia de los Filipinos and Filipinas dentro de 100 años.
Eventually, he completed his second novel, El Filibusterismo, in Brussels, Belgium, on September 18, 1891. He then came back to the Philippines on June 26, 1892, to encourage his friends to join a secret organization known as the Liga Filipina, a secret organization founded by Rizal on July 1892. Its goal was to use peaceful means to fight the Spaniards.
Wow, that is such a brave move, but he did eventually get caught, right?
Very quickly, unfortunately, it was within the span of 3 days, which is due to allegedly bringing leaflets called Pobre Frailes, a propaganda against the rich Dominican friars. Thus, he was exiled to the Pitan in Mindanao.
That is really fast. I didn't expect him to get caught this early on.
Me too. So what did he do during his exile?
Well, he did do a lot of things, full of variety, from establishing an all-boys school to involving himself in works of farming and commerce. He even won a lottery and used the money to build a house, school, and hospital in Talisay.
Wow, very diverse, just like his educational background.
Love in exile, wow.
Yes, he met George Topher and his adopted daughter, Josephine Bracken. He fell in love with her, but their marriage was denied by priest father Obach, due to Rizal not wanting to take back his statement against the church.
His spirit to fight against injustice peacefully never died throughout exile. He objected when Dr. Pio Valenzuela informed him about the Katipunan's plans to revolt against the Spaniards.
Despite being in exile, he was allowed to go to Cuba to serve as a surgeon for the Spaniards in the Cuban War. However, he was told to come back to the Philippines after landing in Barcelona and was brought to Fort Santiago.
Oh my, so what happened after?
Well, he got accused of being the main organizer of the revolution against the Spaniards by spreading ideations of rebellion and creating secret organizations. He pleaded guilty to these charges, even writing a manifesto to ask the revolutionaries to stop the rebellion. However, the Spaniards disliked it and did not have it published. It was decided that he would be executed.
During his last days before his execution, he composed his longest poem, known as Mi Ultimo Adios. He handed it to his sister through a gas lamp when they visited him before his execution. A day before his execution, he gave his possessions to his family when they visited. The following day, he was executed in Bagong Bayan on December 30, 1896.
Of course, he died in a heroic manner. As he was shot, he cried "Consummatum est," which translates into "It is finished" in Latin. With that, we can truly see how he is a hero as he offered his life for his nation and its freedom from the Spaniards.
Born a hero, died a hero.
Truly, his sacrifices are what made our nation into what it is today. Without him, the Filipinos wouldn't have the courage to fight for freedom.
Hearing Jose Rizal's story, history must have truly played a role to how things came to be. With that, Woody, can you give us a brief background into Spanish colonization?
What an interesting question. Well, the Spaniards ruled the Philippines for 333 years. They stumbled upon our nation by accident when searching a new route for the Spice Islands in 1521. Ferdinand Magellan was the head of the Spanish expedition, but was killed by the natives led by tribal chief Lapu-Lapu.
So when did the Spaniards begin ruling our nation?
Well, the colonization began in 1565, when Miguel Lopez de Legazpi concluded treaties of friendship with the native chiefs. He established a Spanish town in Cebu to convert people into Roman Catholics. After all, Spain's aim was to spread their religion.
As colonization continued, the encomienda system occurred, a chief source of abuse. This was not abolished until the end of the 18th century.
What kind of abuse occurred in this system?
Well, through the system, pieces of territory with their inhabitants and resources were granted by the Spanish king to the colonizers as a reward for their service. These encomenderos ruled by exploiting their territories to the limit. They abused, overtaxed, cheated, and enslaved the Filipinos.
Unfortunately, even after the encomienda system was abolished, corrupt Spanish officials continued to exploit Filipinos who still had to render forced labor and pay heavy tributes. This feudal economy remained, with land in control of few individuals and the church. As the country's population grew, poverty became more widespread.
Fast forward to the time of Jose Rizal's arrest, the activists formed the Katipunan under the leadership of Andres Bonifacio. The Katipunan was formed for the expulsion of the Spaniards. Thus, they prepared for an armed revolt.
The inspiring part about this was that, although Filipino rebels have been numerous throughout the Spanish rule, for the first time, these people were inspired by nationalist ambitions and possessed the education to make freedom a success.
Yes, however, these plans were forced into premature action, as the Spanish riders discovered the Katipunan's plans. Revolts began in several provinces around Manila. After months of fighting, severe Spanish retaliation forced armies to retreat to the hills. Finally, after a long 333 years, in December 1897, a truce was concluded with the Spaniards.
You know, just hearing this, no wonder Jose Rizal fought so hard for freedom. This truly was an abusive era for the Philippines.
Truly, hearing this history definitely gave a better insight into the situation Jose Rizal and the Katipunan had to fight.
Now, let us take a short commercial break from our podcast with a light, fun fact segment of Jose Rizal from our featured guest, Mr. Potato Head.
We all know about Jose Rizal's life now, but what about his love life? Jose Rizal was known to be a womanizer, even having different romance in different countries he traveled to. But how about we focus on the top 3 most important women of his life?
Segunda Katigbak, his first love, who was unfortunately engaged to another man. First love never dies, and that's why Rizal has written a hugot line about it 3 years after stopping his courtship. You can see it in the screen.
Next one is Leonor Rivera, famous for being immortalized by Rizal through the character of Maria Clara. She was Rizal's childhood sweetheart. And last but not the least, Josephine Bracken, the woman who had been with Rizal until his death in 1896. They were allegedly married, however, there aren't any legal documents to prove their marriage. There were a lot of women in Jose Rizal's life, but let's not forget when Jose Rizal himself dressed up like a woman. Very iconic to say the least. He didn't only serve the country, but he served up the looks too. Just like Rizal!
Now that we know more about our national hero, his life, and his very enthralling love life, has anyone else ever thought about why we still talk about Jose Rizal? Why does his history continue to impact us, especially the youth?
That's true. I mean, why do we even have to have an episode all about Jose Rizal and talk about his life, even though that dude lived more than 100 years ago?
I'm pretty sure there's so much more to that. Come to think of it, I remember having a course for an entire college term that was all about Jose Rizal and his life, his works, up to his very heroic death. How about you guys?
Yup, I also took that same course.
Well, we're all required to take a course on the life and works of Rizal, and I think it's because it would empower the youth to have nationalism. I think it was pretty effective on our guests, seeing how much they uphold and appreciate Rizal's principles.
So tell us about it, Andy and Woody. Do you think it has been impactful on our youth to study about Rizal?
Absolutely. Okay, for a bit of background, this course is actually required by the law.
No way, really? I didn't know about that, or maybe I must have forgotten all about it.
That law is actually Republic Act 1425, which states that all public and private schools, colleges, and university require a course on the life, works, and writings of Jose Rizal. They said that it was to instill nationalism in the youth.
Not only that, His novels Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo are to be read and studied about. This means that all schools, colleges, and universities are obligated to keep an adequate number of copies of the original and uncensored copies of those novels.
And when we say original and uncensored, we mean original and uncensored. To give some context for those who haven't been able to read those two wonderfully written novels, we will provide a short summary of each. Noli Me Tangere, the first novel, tells the story of Don Crisostomo Ibarra. Ibarra was a young man with both Filipino and Spanish ancestry. After a 7-year trip to Europe, Ibarra came home to the Philippines, witnessing the Spanish colonial rule and its oppression and abuse.
We can also see in the first few chapters how the friars weren't exactly the good role models that they should be.
Yeah, that's why the Catholic Church was against this law even before it was passed. After the Senate has approved of it and signed it into law, and like we said, this law requires Filipino to study about Rizal and his works.
So wait, all Filipino students really are required by the law to read those novels and study about his life? But what if they don't want to? Will they still have to?
Indeed, they do. The only time that there would be an exception in reading the novels was when it was against someone's religious beliefs. You can see these two novels contain heavy themes on Catholicism as mentioned.
Honestly, even if there were other conditions to be exempted, I still think I'd read those novels. They're fascinating and engrossing, and you can really see how much of a genius Rizal really was.
I agree. Because of those novels, and well, his other works, we got to really learn more about the Spanish colonial rule at the time, and how remaining loyal to one's country and passionate about fighting for freedom can make history. Literally.
Wow, that's amazing. No wonder Rizal is not only a small part of our history, but he continues to be a part of every Filipino's lives. I believe because of studying him, we Filipinos really get to understand ourselves more and have that passion to be patriotic.
Do you believe it helps Filipinos, especially the Filipino youth of today, to be more nationalistic and patriotic?
I honestly do, because I'm not gonna lie, the characters in the novels, such as Simone, the main character in El Filibusterismo, gave us the impression that we should have an intact system of beliefs for rights, justice, and freedom.
Yes, true, because these books enlightened society both now and then, to open their eyes and fight against oppression. It allows us to be more aware of how easy it is to overlook abuse from the authorities.
Because of these novels, it reminded us that it's important to be critical towards our political figures and other figures of authority. As a democratic country, we must remember that we are the driving force behind how this country should be run.
I agree. Just like GERIZAL himself, we should never stop demanding for accountability and competence from our government. I'm pretty sure that most Filipinos believe that as well.
I understand more deeply now why firstly Rizal is our national hero and why we must study about his life, works, and writings.
I can really say that RA 1425 really does instill nationalism, not only on the youth, but on every Filipino there is. Like Rizal said, the youth is the hope of our future.
Jose Rizal is absolutely, indubitably a genius. Part of the reason why I won't ever get tired of studying him and analyzing his work.
I'm starting to admire him more now actually, and maybe I would go read Nolly and El Fili once I have the time again.
I agree, and that's a wrap. Thank you once again to our esteemed guests, Andy and Woody, for sharing history and insights of Jose Rizal to celebrate his birth anniversary today.
Thank you as well, dear listeners, for tuning in our podcast. Once again, I am Buzz Lightyear.
And I am Jessie Starlight, and we hope to see you in our next episode of The Daily Buzz.